The Florida Gators roster for 2023 is mostly set, but what are this team's biggest strengths? On paper, we're going to talk about it here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Olson. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find my written work with Whole Line Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. And when you enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege, no spaces, they'll throw in a free customs Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. And now we are going to talk about what the Florida Gators' biggest strengths are for this 2023 college football season. And yeah, we're going to start with the biggest strength, which is probably the most obvious strength as well. It's the running game. And as you can tell, I'm not just saying running backs. I'm saying the running game because I want to make it clear. This is what the Florida Gators are strong at. Later this week will be what they're weak at. But in general, it's not just strongest position groups. That's lazy and honestly just boring. But we are talking about the running game, the biggest strength of the Florida Gators team. I think everybody knows it. That's not a secret at all. But you do look at the running back room. You have arguably the best running back duo in college football. Michigan's up there for sure. Georgia's always going to be up there. Yeah, there's schools in contention. But you look at what Montrell Johnson did last year and the year before that. And you look at what true freshman Trevor Etienne did last year. That's a pretty strong running duo, little thunder and lightning duo. I know that the fan base is kind of like, oh, Trevor Etienne's better. I disagree. I think Montrell Johnson is the better back right now, at least. I think he's just got more of that contact balance to his game than Trevor Etienne has right now. But, I mean, that's an elite running back duo. Both of them would start on pretty much any football team in the country except for maybe a couple, Michigan being one of them. But so you've got an elite running back duo. You look at behind that, you've got Cam Carroll, who 2022 injured, missed most of the year, but 2021 was a pretty good running back and a great pass catcher out of the backfield for Tulane in 2021. So as your third back, that's a pretty good third running back. If I do say so myself, pretty good running back trio. You have elite running back duo. You look at the offensive line, which in the spring game was bad at pass protection more than anything else, but they should be average to above average as far as run blocking goes. Whether or not we'll see them in pass protection or how we'll see them in pass protection is different, but run blocking in a wide zone scheme, wide zone system, you're going to have your great tackle in Austin Barber is going to be there. Kingsley Eguakin is not a bad run blocker. You have, if Micah Mazuka is healthy, he's going to be a killer in the run game. Keontae Goodwin is just a big, powerful, burly dude. He's going to have no problem at right tackle, assuming he's the starter. Your offensive line is average to above average as far as run blocking goes. There's something that you should be comfortable with. That's always been a thing. It's not going to be as good as it was last year because you don't have the best guard in college football on your team, or you might have the best guard in college football, but Osiris Torrance was last year, and, well, he's gone. All SEC guard Ethan White is gone. But you've still got your probably best tackle from last year in Austin Barber. He's still there to lead the way. You've got tight ends that are going to be better than they were last year, especially at run blocking. They're going to have more time to develop their technique. And I wish Keon Zipper the speediest recovery. I mean, no ill will when I say this, but him not being there probably makes your tight end group better at run blocking. It just does. It bumps up guys like Hayden Hansen, Jonathan Odom when he's healthy. It bumps them up the depth chart, and they're better run blockers than Keon Zipper was. Arliss Boardingham, to be determined. But we know that tight ends are going to be pretty strong run blockers this year. That's great. So your offensive line got worse, but your tight ends are getting better. Dante Sanders with another 20 pounds dropped and clearly looks like he's in better shape than he was last year. And another year of learning how to play tight end and learning how to block. He should be significantly better than he was last year, at least as a run blocker. Then you look at just the running game schematically, because that's an important part about talking about this. And it's also important to acknowledge schematically, this is one of the best run games in college football. It truly, this wide zone style is fantastic. I would like to see a little bit more pin pull style. Maybe we'll see that with more athletic guards as time goes on under Billy Napier. Pin pull, by the way, is when you got your guard, tackle, tight end. Your tight end pushes towards your tackle, so he's pinning the edge of the defensive line, and your guard pulls around. That's the pin pull. You see that with a lot of teams in the NFL. A lot of wide zone teams do work that in because you've got athletic enough guards. So I think that Billy Napier will eventually work that into the offensive system, into the offensive game plan. But even if he doesn't, schematically, this is just a great run blocking offense. This is a great running game offensively, schematically. It's what they do. Like that's Billy Napier's bread and butter. That's what he's really good at. And you can tell, like everybody that complains about Billy Napier needs to work on his offense. He needs to add an offensive coordinator. He needs to do all these things. Nobody ever mentions the run game because it was so good. So Billy Napier, schematically, this offensive run game, dominant. Like you don't get better than that. Really, you truly don't. It's just elite. That's what that wide zone style does. That's what that pre-snap motion shifting, because you can send a receiver from the left to the right, and then look at that. Now the left side, you lost a receiver. They lost a safety that was playing nickel, or they lost a linebacker shifted towards the middle, and you're running wide anyway past that side. So things like that work out that Billy Napier did a really good job at. Still gets to do that this year. That's awesome. Adding that in with the running back duo and the average to above average offensive line and an improved tight end room, your run game is still going to be elite. We're going to look at the defensive side of the ball for really the remainder of this show, which is kind of surprising to me, at least when I was putting this together. I was like, really, what's the third strength is one that I was like, that's barely a strength, but I'm going to give it to you still, because I do think that it's going to be a surprise strength. But first, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by a new sponsor, Bird Dogs. And oh my goodness, they sent us some shorts. Let me tell you. First off, the Hoochie Daddy shorts. Got the 6-inch inseam, so the Hoochie Daddy shorts. But they are so incredibly comfortable and versatile. Like I said, I got them yesterday. I wore them today. And dear Lord, I wore them to lounge around the house, and they were comfy. I wore them to go to the gym, and they were comfy. And let's see, I'm going to tell you how much I walked in them, just so we can get that one out of the way. Once I find the health app, I will let you know how much I walked in them. 9.8 miles today is how much I walked. And they felt good for every single one of them. They kept me dry, by the way. They're also very thin. Felt amazing. Just go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. And when you enter promo code lockedoncollege with no spaces, they'll throw in a free customs Bird Dog Yeti style tumbler with every order. And I promise you, you won't regret it for a second. They're amazing. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And now we are talking about this pass rush. But before I do that, please do like, subscribe, comment, review, join the Locked On Gators Discord. Links in the description below. But yes, now we're talking about this pass rush because I truly think it's going to be a strength for quite a few reasons. First off, you've heard literally him on the show over a year ago. He was here. So you've heard him on the show. You've heard me talk about him. You've heard me say I've spoken to people that work in the NFL, and they've told me 33 is the best player on that defense last year. You know who 33 was? Princely Umanmielen. Princely Umanmielen played the defensive end spot last year. There's more of a 5-tech, which is lined up with the tackle. He's going to be playing that jack linebacker, that stand-up pass rusher role. He's going to cook with it. I'm like, like I've said it before. I will say it again. And we know what it is. It's easier to rush the passer when you're rushing from a stand-up position. Like, sure, some guys prefer the hand in the dirt. Usually those are the bigger, straight power rushers. Princely Umanmielen, I mean, you get that quick first step, which he has. Like, when you've seen him line up, stand up, he's had that quick first step that you see, and you're like, oh, damn, okay, didn't think he'd be able to do that. So you see Princely Umanmielen with that stand-up pass rusher role. He's going to be better. Just pin his ears back and get going when he's not dropping back into coverage, which is something that we'll talk about another day, because I'm going to go more in on Austin Armstrong's defense, and I'm telling you, it's pretty freaking sweet. I'm not going to lie to you. So you look at Princely Umanmielen, who, again, last year, like I spoke to multiple people from different NFL teams. The Lions were one of them. So if you're a Lions fan, at least know one person there at least likes Princely Umanmielen. But they were like, yeah, he's the best player on that defensive line, best player on that defense in general. He's a beast. He's going to be awesome. Is he declaring? And I was like, I don't think so, but maybe. And then you look at what Austin Armstrong brings to the table and I wrote my little notes because I put bullet points. I put blitz happy game plan. And here's the thing. Is it really that blitz happy? Or is he going to be that blitz happy? You look at the spring game. He wasn't that blitz happy. He was just sending these sim pressures. He was showing a lot of different things to the offensive line, and they just couldn't adjust. That's one of the reasons the offensive line looked so bad in the spring game, was that Austin Armstrong showed them a whole bunch of different looks, and they didn't know who was rushing from where. And that's not surprising when you consider the inexperience of the guys that actually played in the spring game. That's going to happen still to SEC starting teams, SEC starting offensive lines. That's still going to be a thing for the pass rush here, because there's going to be times where offensive linemen are going to look at Princely Umanmielen standing up on the edge, and they're going to go, all right, he's their best pass rusher. He's coming in here. And then he's going to drop back into coverage, and it's going to be Shamar James on the opposite side coming in, and then the entire offensive line needs to kind of try to shift to the left and everybody block, and you're just not going to be able to do that consistently. And so that's part of it, where it's not necessarily a blitz-happy game plan. It's just an incredibly aggressive defensive scheme that's going to create pressure with a new pass rush plan. You're going to see more stunts than you saw last year, twists more than you saw last year. You're going to see a lot of different looks from the Florida Gators defensively in 2023 than you saw in 2022. And it's going to be better. It's going to be generating more pressure. It's going to be less of the, I don't like saying bend, don't break. But when you're talking about a quarters heavy defense like Florida had last year, like the Philadelphia Eagles had last year, like the Arizona Cardinals are going to have this year, when you talk about that style, that's kind of what it is. It's like, yeah, we're putting a premium on don't get beat deep. It's bend, don't break. And there wasn't a ton of pass rush coming from that last year, which also you could still play bend, don't break and still be more creative as a pass rusher by adding stunts and twists and all that stuff. Patrick Toney just didn't. Austin Armstrong will, and he's also not as bend, don't break as Patrick Toney was. So the aggression from this game plan is going to be kicked up a bunch of notches, and you're going to be firing. And also keeping in mind that I think that you've got more bodies to rotate in and keep players fresh. Also going to be a little bit more creative personnel-wise, I believe. Like, you're going to see Justus Boone play D-end, but he's also going to line up at D-tackle, I think, in certain pass rushing situations. And you're going to see Princely maybe go to D-end, or TJ Searcy go to D-end, or Princely go to D-end and TJ Searcy go to edge, or Kelby Collins. You're going to see a lot going on. Bryce Capers, Jack Pyburn. You're going to see everybody line up in different spots. So I think that's going to also keep players fresh and just keep things fresh. The last thing that we're talking about for today's show is something that, like I said, I was kind of on the fence about it. As will this be a strength of the Florida Gators in 2023? But when I was looking at it on paper, I kind of think it will be. And it's the interior defensive line. Because here's the thing also. Every team has strengths, whether or not you're great comparatively, it we'll talk about. But if you look at just this team, receivers not the strength. They're so young, you have one proven guy. Receivers not the strength. Tight end can't be the strength. They're so young, you have zero proven guys. Offensive line is not the strength. Was last year, might not be this year. Not quarterback. We already talked about the running room. Not going to be linebacker because, again, so many question marks. Not going to be corner. Not going to be safety. It's your interior defensive line. But even if your offensive line was slightly worse than it was last year, or even if your receiver room was slightly better, tight end room slightly better, I still think I'd go interior defensive line, mainly for what you have at the top. Because you have 3 starter quality interior defensive linemen on this defensive line. You start 2, but you have 3 starter quality interior defensive linemen on this team. Keep in mind, for me, starter quality means in the nation. Obviously, every team has starter quality if you look at the internal look. I'm looking at in the nation. The Florida Gators have 3 guys that can start on a lot of teams in the country. They're average to above average as starters go. Chris McClellan and Cam Jackson are the easy 2. I understand Chris McClellan is unproven. I understand Chris McClellan has not played a ton of snaps. That's basically the same thing. And I understand he's very young. But he presents just so much of the flashes that we look at and we go, oh, he's going to be a problem in a year or 2. Like he showed that as a freshman. So it's in a year or 2. The year is this year where hopefully he takes the next step. Maybe it's next year. But you look at what he showed last year with his rip, with his bull rush. He showed a pass rush plan. Now he's had a year to develop that plan, a year to get quicker and stronger and get better. And I think Chris McClellan is going to be the best interior defensive lineman on this team. However, Cam Jackson is also an interior defensive lineman on this team. All AAC last year. He was a beast. So many people have spoken about, man, like there were a ton of tweets coming out when he was hitting the portal that I'm watching this Memphis team and man, Cam Jackson next year gonna be a guy that we talk about in the NFL. If he can carry over his level of play from Memphis to Gainesville, he's gonna be really freaking good if he can play that dominantly in the SEC. We're hoping he could. We're expecting him to. You look at the spring game, he had a damn good spring game. Like Cam Jackson can be great. You throw Chris McClellan and Cam Jackson on the interior, and you immediately address the biggest issue that Florida had along the defensive line last year, which was Gervon Dexter has to play all the snaps. Gervon Dexter has to play all the snaps. He's gassed. He's tired. He's this, he's that. You address that by you have Cam Jackson and Chris McClellan here. Now, will they be great in tandem? Will they be starting together? They should be for both of those. They should be the answer there. Chris McClellan has the potential to be an elite interior pass rusher. Like, I'm going to say, Chris McClellan has the potential to be a Quinnen Williams caliber pass rushing defensive tackle. Like Chris McClellan has the potential to be a Quinnen Williams caliber player. Will he be? We'll see. But the potential physical skill set, he's there. Like he's already shown the pass rush plan, like I mentioned. He's got the physical traits to do that. So you look at your starters of Chris McClellan and Cam Jackson, they're pretty damn good. You look at who's right behind them, it's Desmond Watson. I understand he's really big. And again, for me, I don't necessarily care about the number. If he's healthy and they say he's healthy, so who cares? Who cares about the number? If they say he's healthy and he can play SEC football, I don't care what the number is for his weight. So if he's rotating in, you've immediately got a just massive, massive nose tackle there. And he's not awesome, but in the snaps that he played, he did a pretty good job of it. Also, I will talk about that. I've been rewatching the Florida Gators season. I usually rewatch the season 2 or 3 times from one season to the next. So I was rewatching the Georgia game the other day. And usually when I watch the game live, I don't have commentary on because I can't stand them. But I have commentary on when I'm rewatching. And they were talking about how Georgia's OC last year, Todd Monken, pretty much said, hey, we're going to go no huddle a lot because if Desmond Watson's on the field, we want to see how good his cardio is. And he played pretty poorly against Georgia. He played bad against up-tempo teams. So him coming off the bench is going to be a lot easier, I think, for him to have these, because he pushed the pocket certain times. He commanded double teams at certain times, and he's a big, powerful dude. Him coming off the bench is going to allow him to do that more consistently and dominate more often than he did last year. So Desmond Watson is your third defensive tackle, your first defensive tackle coming off the bench. Tell you, he's got potential to be a one-man wrecking crew off that bench. Like, you bring him in an obvious running situation and you go, hey man, just push, and he can completely disrupt the run game and the passing game. Maybe not get your sack, but if he could push the quarterback, if you could push the offensive line back to the quarterback, get up on him, you can create some havoc there. So Desmond Watson rotating in, I think, is going to be great for him and for this defensive line. And then of all the young players that are on this defensive line, just all the 2023 freshmen that are joining this team, like, I'm expecting at least one of them to step up. Maybe that's me being optimistic, but you look at Will Norman can step in as a 3-tech. You look at if Caleb Banks from Louisville, who's not a freshman, but he's a transfer from Louisville. That's a redshirt freshman, barely played, but he was productive when he did play. If he can rotate in, congratulations, you got another guy there. You look at someone like Tariq Sapp. Will you take the next step? You look at Kelby Collins. I expect him to be the Justus Boone type, where he's like a D end, but he's a tweener in the sense of, we're going to list him at edge, but he's not a D end outside linebacker tweener. He's a D tackle, like a 3-tech defensive end tweener. You've got that in TJ Searcy. You've got that in, I think Justus Boone could do both. Like I said, like I mentioned him earlier, I think he can do that. So when you just look at just the freshmen, what they're bringing into the table, you look at what Kelby Collins can bring to the table. I think that you're looking at a defense that you got some guys where one of them can step up. Like, I think that should be the expectation, that at least one of these freshmen step up and step in and become legitimate contributors. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Way back, the rest of this week is going to be the weaknesses of this Florida Gators roster. And we got Brian Smith coming back for recruiting. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work at Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all tomorrow.